welcome to the P.A.T podcast. As you all know, I am Patrick. Today I have with me once again, and I'm very, very excited that he was willing to come back on as soon as he did after our last one, which, by the way, man, for what it's worth, as my channel's growing, that last one has been the fastest viewership that I've seen in like a short, 48 hours. For what it's worth, it's over half my subscribers in views. So it's over like 260 now views, which doesn't seem like a lot, but the fact that how quickly that was is letting me know that people are very interested in what you were saying, what Chance was saying. People want to hear these things to some degree or another, a lot of positive feedback. So for what it's worth, welcome back, Dylan Saccoccio. Is it Saccoccio? I know we fuck. And
yeah, man, you're in your own head. You're saying it perfect.
All right, man. Just because you get those people who are like, their names are like, oh, Kate. They're like, it's Kate. I'm like, who names their kid Kate? You know what I mean? But anyway,
Yeah,
man,
people
welcome
used
back.
to. I had a boss back in the day. He used to call me Skoskizy because he could never pronounce my last name.
Right. Or do the mumbling. Oh man, that's hilarious. Well, welcome back, brother. I'm happy that you decided to come back, and we got a lot of good stuff. And also with me, my good friend who's also crushing it in his own way. He's got his own podcast now. We can talk about that more as well. Mr. Rob Edward, what's up, man?
How's it going, man? Really grateful to be here, man. I've been looking up to both you guys for quite a while now, so I'm just happy to be a part of the conversation.
Dude, I like having, because you also ask better questions than
Dude,
I
that
do.
head of hair. Do you see that fucking head of hair on that guy?
I know.
God damn, man. He
I'm
looks
not
like
going
something out of
bald
like one of those
anytime soon.
Japanese anime movies or whatever, you know?
Yeah. Well, for what it's worth, my not to be too grotesque, my beard looks like someone just put pubic patches everywhere. So
Yeah, you're that like guy who like they shaved Brad Pitt's pubes and like glued them to your face.
and just to try to get me to look a little bit like more manly, more masculine. And this is just
I'm in
one.
the same boat, dude.
I was gonna say I got like missing pieces. Chance,
It's not our fault. It's the estrogenics.
I
Okay,
do.
our society's got estrogen in everything.
I know, man. It's unfortunate, but at the same time, you can't help but laugh about it. I think it's funny, but that'll
Yeah.
be said. Let's dive in. It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be for a lot of people, it's gonna maybe pucker up your butthole a little bit, just letting you all know. And I start with that because we are going to be getting to some stuff that is important, and it cannot be, it can't be what it was debated really, because when we go into this, and I'll let Dylan really dive into it, the truth will always. It doesn't need to be, what's the word I'm looking for? You don't have to try to speak for the truth. The truth will.
It'll defend itself.
Thank you. That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, and so some of the subjects we've talked about, I have no idea what we're going to get into because
Yeah.
we can get into whatever you guys want. But some of the subjects that we mentioned are very controversial. But if you're a religious person, if you like being bound, religare, if you like being tied up and binded fast, then don't listen to this. If you want to know what you're espousing so you can change your behavior, fine. We'll help you. But if not, it's not a big deal. Don't get all crazy. And, it is what it is. A lot of the stuff that I'm going to be exposing, if I talk about it, it's my culture, right? So you're not going to sit here and tell me what my culture's symbolism comes from or means when it's my fucking culture that created it. I'm in like multiple different bloodlines from all over the world that I have are all connected to this symbolism. So I know what it is. And I have family members that have served in these cults. So I'm not going after anybody other than my own kind. And that's why I did this work, is because nobody can come at me and blame me for, I don't know, coming at some sort of angle of like being prejudiced or something. It's like I went at my own kind harder than anybody goes at their own kind.
Right.
So leave it at that. And if you're easily offended, or you've had like one too many booster shots, get on down the road. This ain't the watering hole for you.
So you have been warned, and with that, I think we just should dive right in, if it's cool with you guys, because this is something that has been fascinating to me as I've been learning through your books, but also just all around. So the one thing that we hear about is the good and evil. We hear more than not, Jesus, Lucifer, all these different, yings and yangs, pros and cons. And one thing that you bring up a lot in your books is what Lucifer actually is. And this is fascinating to me. I opened my eyes and really being able to not just hear someone say it, but explain it and what your point is and what you're getting across and what the truth is. So if we can, if that's cool with you guys, can we dive into what is Lucifer?
Yeah. I mean, if it's okay with Rob, if he has anything to.
Yeah, no, man, you're the honestly, I'm just I'm just really excited to be here, man. I've been listening to your stuff and everything you've been putting out and read your books and all that kind of stuff. I'm fascinated by this and just want to chime in when I can. But yeah.
You kind of remind me. You kind of remind me of Jimmy Caviezel. You know who that is?
No. Oh yeah, Jesus.
You look like him.
Yeah.
Real quick,
he's a good guy.
Real quick, Dylan. He's Rob is my my book club friend that I was telling you about when we were reading your books. I'm like, dude, my buddy's creaming harder than I am about this book. So
well, that's I was gonna say from the beginning, man. Like they're kind of hard to read just because like every single page I'm like dog earing and highlighting it and stuff like that, man. It's
bullshit.
It's incredible, man.
Right.
No, I wanted to make like a super concentrated book that will give you guys the way I look at it, and the way this is for me is like I'm in the wilderness, it's fucking raining, and I'm making a bow drill ember, and like you guys are like the Tinder bundles. Like get your Tinder bundles ready. And then your podcasts are like, you know, you put the ember in the Tinder bundle, and then your audience will be like the wood, the kindling, you know? So it's like, we got to get these fires started, but everybody's got to do their part. It's too much for one person to do. So that was the idea, is there's going to be people who may use this information to uncover more than we ever did in 100 years or something. So it's very important what we do now to give everybody a chance, you know, as they kind of like censor everything. I mean, my YouTube, everything is so censored that I don't get my work out there anymore because it's so shadow bit. Like my comments don't even show up on people's profiles. Like when I try to share stuff. Yeah. So it's like, it's just me. No, like it's hard enough to share this work with the din of all the voices that are like constantly flooding the market. But when you compound like all the shadow banning that all of my accounts are under, I literally don't have a voice anymore unless you guys bring me on your platform. So thank you for doing that, and thank you for supporting the work. And you know, you're who my faith or hope is. It's in your hands now. You know, like I feel like I've done everything I can. I don't know what else I could do. But let's get cracking into it. The first thing regarding Lucifer, it's a very new name, not an old name by any means. It's Latin, exclusively Latin. And for those who want to kind of see where it comes from astrologically, I would recommend you type in Lucifer and Greek in Google or whatever search engine you use. And what you're going to get is Venus. And so that is what the archetype, in a later sense of the symbolism, is embodying, is the Venus in the dawn sky. Not Venus in the evening sky. That would be Vesper. So when you hear words like Vespertine, that is going to be pertaining to Venus when it's Lord of the Night in the evening sky. Now, it was added to the Bible, whatever the Bible is. It's not an authentic document, but it was added a long time after. And what they did is they used it to allegorize, like in the way Venus's orbit is and the way the sun's ecliptic is. When the sun is right, so before dawn, Venus is like the brightest thing in the sky. And if you're watching this and you've never seen that, I mean, there was one time I've come home at like 4 a.m., 5 a.m., you see that thing and it looks like a UFO because it's so bright. And you're like, is that a star? What the hell is that? Until you realize it's Venus. It's incredible. And as it is the morning star, if you will, it announces the dawn, then the sun comes. So it like bears the light, right? It ushers in the sun. And then as the sun rises towards its the midheaven or whatever, the zenith, Venus is gonna look like it's gonna get blotted out eventually because the sun makes the sky so bright. but because of its orbit, it's gonna go both like it looked like it's falling,
Right.
or being cast out of heaven. So it was the brightest angel, angle, emanation. Going back to what we were talking about yesterday, the Bible being the doctrine of emanations, the angels are emanations. It's like the Sephiroth in the Kabbalah. Because all of this goes back to old literature and old systems that astrologers used. And they stole it from the Chaldeans. And what the Chaldeans would love to do is encode all their astrological knowledge into allegory. And so some people know what they were, some people don't know what they are. And so that was like when you look at the early Christian church, that's where you had the three major categories. You had the catechumens, you had the competentes, and then you had the Illuminati. And the Illuminati were the ones who knew how to read the Gospels appropriately. So prior to all this, Lucifer had almost no legend, and it's because it's a modern name. So if you search like, well, first, just to show people what it means, it comes from two Latin words, luce, light. That's where the name Luke comes from. And, so luce or lux, all right? And going back to philologically speaking, the X is also equivalent to the K or the CKS. So see how it becomes Luke. So LUX, right? Luxor, or is another word for the sun. The R is like a half of a N, and N just completes the R if you look at it from a lowercase point. So then you'd have on. That's what I said at the beginning of last episode with Chance. On, tell me of the God on who was, is, and shall be. And that is Helios or Helios. And that's where Heliopolis comes from. The Egyptians called it on. That is a derivative with the N and M being replaceable of in India. It's the
Yep.
Right? And so that is the spiritual sun, if you will. And so tying all this back together, in the immediate sense, Venus is obviously a feminine archetype, right? You see her coming, she's always like on a oyster shell or coming from the ocean. And it's because she comes from Venus Aphrodite, which is a Phoenician archetype. And in old statues, she had a beard because this is all hermaphroditic. And that is Lucifer. And so you'll even see in the Bible, Jesus talking about he's also the star of the morning. And so what people are having trouble in the modern era is they're trying to break up the Trinity or the Tremuti, three forms, one God, or one God, three forms. I think on the last episode, I said three gods, one form. Sometimes so if you catch me doing something like that, you have to step in because I'm mildly dyslexic. One God, three forms.
Right.
So what you would have is a creator, a preserver, and a destroyer.
Mm-hmm.
And what the Christian monks did, and this is what I'm exploring in my book, I'm not ready to take a stance, even though I have my opinions on it, but I'll leave it to the viewer or the reader to decide right now whether they think, whether the Christian monks did it through ignorance or through deception. They broke that Trinity up into a fourth part, which is, normally the Trinity has like a father, a son, and some destroyer or devil type character, like Shiva. What the Christian church did is they split that devil character into two. So now you have the Holy Ghost and the devil, and the Father and the Son. So you've got four. Now, if they didn't do it through ignorance, I'd suspect that it was to correspond to the four seasons, because there used to only be three seasons. Right. Behind that was the year was divided more into like a third, and autumn was part of summer. So what I think they did is they divided it into four, but there was so much stuff that didn't make sense regarding like the Holy Ghost that they had to rewrite stuff and try to reconcile all the stuff that was incongruent at the Council of Nicaea. And then it came up again because there was even more shit that didn't make sense still at at the Council of Constantinople in 381. So you're really looking at the 3rd and 4th century where all this darkness begins and covers up everything. But going back to Lucifer and Venus, you will see like marine Venus, and it's a aquatic archetype. Aphrodite means phone sprung, remembering that this comes from Venus Aphrodite from the Phoenicians, and the Greeks had Aphrodite, right? Foam sprung. So she's coming out of the water. She refers to the sea. So you would have, first of all, before they changed the planet names into God names that were our old aspects of the sun. This is all going to come back to the Trinity and the Sun. So just, I know this is a lot, but you want me to like unfold this lotus for you. It's got to be like this.
Of course.
So prior to the 2nd century BC in Alexandria, Venus was called Phosphoros, and it was also known as the star of Isis. And so, this is still kind of modern. So Isis was still looked at like the moon, all this other stuff. Ultimately, these are all archetypes of the sun in different parts of the year in the original symbolism before they started ascribing them to the
luminaries.
Keep
talking. You guys keep talking.
Yeah, no problem. So marine Venus, knowing Venus is Lucifer, the light bearer, if you look at where marine comes from, it's an adjective describing seas. And that seas would be Maria. And that's the plural for the sea in Latin, which would be mare, which is where Mary comes from. So you have Ave Maris Stella, Hail Mary, star of the sea. And so you also have Lucifer is Mary, who is Mare, the sea, who is marine Venus. And this is where people start having that break when they realize that the mother of their Lord and Savior is in fact Lucifer. But it gets even more complex because Venus Aphrodite in the Phoenician world, it's ultimately an archetype for the sun. And so you would have the Virgin Mary, Virgo. When you're looking at these archetypes in the zodiac, when the sun is in spring, sign of the bull, where it used to start, that would be like Isis. And then you'd have when the sun, when she's in, or he is in Virgo, that would be Venus. So you have when you are fertile or ovulating, and then you have when you're giving birth or bearing the fruit of your womb in the harvest season at the end of summer and in Libra. And so these are all ultimately aspects of the sun. And so that's how you have this thing that can't be reconciled, where Jesus is saying, I am the bright and shining, the morning star, or whatever, the offspring of David. He's letting you know that he is one emanation, one of the 3 forms of one God, because all of this is taken from the Trimuti, or Trinity. And so what you have is a situation where the sun and all these Abrahamic archetypes are all hermaphroditic. Hermes, the sun; Aphrodite, the sun; the feminine and the masculine, Solomon, in one being the creator, preserver, and the destroyer. And so this is how people can't reconcile. They're like, well, is the Father, it says the Son is the Father is the Son. Is Jesus God? What's going on here? And then who's the devil and the Holy Spirit? Well, it's because they fucked it all up with, their hodgepodge of stealing Oriental mystery school knowledge and encoding it in Gospels. And then what people don't realize is these are all the same archetype. Jesus is the devil. Jesus is the Father, is the Holy Ghost. It's all one. Jesus is interchangeable with Jehovah or Yova or Job, as they say, Yov, because it's all the same root. If you look at the letters of their word, Yah, God, Iota, Eta, in Greek. That would be Yod He in Hebrew, means God. Now you add the second part of Yova, which would be the Vav and the He, then it becomes Lord. The Lord, the Father, the Son, it's all one archetype because the Son is a triune nature and it's hermaphroditic, according to the symbolism. And the ancients knew this, and they're not sitting here arguing over this as though it's a literal story that they need to reconcile in reality. They knew what it was, and that's the dark ages we're in, is what the church did with all of this symbolism to the actual Christianity that comes from the Hellenic world. They repackaged everything, fucked it all up, chose which gospels they were going to use, and that's all they put forth. And they ignored everything else, and they gave it to the masses in one version, and then they have their secret doctrines, or what the Illuminati knew how to read, in the other, and it's encoding astrology.
Well, real quick, what's interesting is when you talk about gospel, right? In your book, you make it very clear that it's goat spell. When you know, and I don't know if you want to really quickly touch on kind of what that the green language is, or the language of the birds is with that.
Well, just because going back to what you were saying in like your culture, like the Yule, right? Mm-hmm. Yule comes from Eol, Elios, the sun, because that is where these certain cultures started the year in the winter solstice. And so Elios, the sun, is going to determine the course of the year. And so where that starts is Capricorn, the sign of the goat, or the manger of the goat. And so that's why the sun is born in the manger of the goat, because after the solstice on the 21st, it stays at that degree of the ecliptic on the Tropic of Capricorn for 3 days, and then it rises 1 degree as it goes back towards the Tropic of Cancer. Now, at that time of year, at midnight, the star rising in the east in the ascendant, the first star you will see of that constellation Virgo is Vindhamiatrix, the grape harvestress. It's grape harvester, but it's a female form. And Virgo is Lord of the Ascendant. So that's at midnight. As sunrise comes, Virgo will make its way towards midheaven. So at dawn, when the sun is being born, Virgo is Lord of the night, ruling the sky. He's born of a virgin. And that is also the story of the rape of Persephone in Hades, winter, because she is that astrological sign. Mary, Mare, she rules that winter sky. And so that's what is encoding in all this symbolism. And none of the people that created this knowledge looked at it as a historical or literal story. That's why, unfortunately, what we have today and we call Christianity, it's not real Christianity, it's like Christianism. And that is the 2,000 years of dark ages that we've experienced. And that's a hard pill to swallow, because a lot of us come from Christian backgrounds. And, you know, we're all about like, and ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. And the further you look into it, the deeper you realize that we were the problem, because our ignorance, we didn't know what we were looking at. And it's kind of like this, it's the exact same dichotomy of like a globe earther.
Right.
You know, and we grew up being raised as globe earthers. And then one day you realize something's not making sense. And all of a sudden, you know, for me, it was a very young, I started off very young in my resentment of the church, because as a little boy, I couldn't get past the fact that they would always show Jesus crucified. And that to me was so offensive. Like, how dare you depict my Lord and Savior in his most vulnerable moment getting tortured, when you could have depicted him saving people and healing people and stuff. Mm-hmm. And so that's because I was uninitiated and I didn't understand the symbolism I was looking at. And had I been initiated, I wouldn't have had that perspective. So for me, it was like, I'm gonna get vengeance for Jesus. You know what I mean? Like, take these motherfuckers down. But it's, you know, you start realizing like, oh, it's not what I thought it was. I was duped because I didn't know the symbolism. And so that is where you see, like, you know how Crow has been having a lot of people on that cover like alchemy and spagyrics and all that stuff. That is when you see when the church comes around, they take away the natural world and everything goes from being alchemy and like spagyrics and all these natural ways of healing to now working miracles. And when you start with this shit with working miracles, you get into this age of, you know, charlatanism. And, you know, step on up, I'm gonna save you for Jesus. In the name of Jesus, I'm gonna cast these demons away and all this fucking freaky weird shit. And it's like, they got away from nature. And what else did they do? They demonized villagers. So you always hear Christians throw around these words like pagan. And I find that very offensive because if you know where pagan comes from, it comes from the Latin word pagos, which is village. And the Greek version of that would be pagus with a P-A-G-O-S, right? That means hill. So like when you look at Edios Pagos, or Areos Pagos, the hill of Ares. That would be where they judged everybody in the Greek world. That was like the Supreme Court of that day. Well, in Latin, that's village. So the word pagani, where pagan comes from, it's just pagan with an I at the end, means villagers. So they literally, so let me ask somebody, if you're watching this as a Christian, who do you think is closer to God? A villager who's out in nature and working in God's construct, or some yuppie bathhouse, Roman Empire, trashy politician, you know, sucking everybody's dick, gorging himself, throwing up so he can keep eating, you know, city slickers. You think someone in a city knows more about God and nature than a villager? And they constantly do this, man. They constantly demonize the people who are actually in touch with God and in touch with nature. And that's what happens. And you see the same thing today. You know, it's like, let them eat cake. You know, this world's collapsing and they're all fucking partying like rock stars on our taxes. That, you know, it's like, it's not even about the money. The taxes and all that stuff is just to keep us from ever being comfortable. You know, so going back to all of this, they're archetypes of the sun. Lucifer is Mare, Mary, Marine Venus, an archetype for the water and the feminine aspect of consciousness, but ultimately also Virgo. The sun in Virgo.
And
so that's it.
I mean, this is fantastic. And I don't want to jump over you, Rob. I'll let you talk here in a sec. But I just think what is so great hearing these things is just the fact that you said it's like you hear this demoralizing of one another, of what you see in the book, of what makes these people bad, like the paganism stuff. And when you know, based off of listening to Crow, looking into it, talking to people like Benjamin Balderson, people who are doing alchemy, it's like these aren't bad people. These are actually the people we can learn so much from about what you just said, nature, and knowing that there is no lie in nature, and that in the event some shit goes down, I want someone like that to be my teacher. I want to be their apprentice, or at least want to be around them, so I can have that wherewithal with eyes to see how to survive in those situations. Like you said, as things are going to crap and people are, you know, partying and they don't have to worry about it, the majority of us need to know what we're doing. We need to know how to get food. We need to know how to get a fresh water source. Asking any single person here, this audience may be fine. Do you know how to filter your water, distill your own water? You know what I mean? Like these are little things, but like knowing that, you know, we're getting taught that these people, because of a name and how it gets demoralized, you know, and not knowing really what is behind these words, and knowing it is spellcraft. It is this goat spell that we are experiencing, and having this breath of fresh air of knowing, okay, wow, it doesn't take away from the fact that you still are grateful that you are made in the image of God or creator of whatever this place is. That doesn't take that away. It's all of this other, you know, bullshit that is really causing even more of this, you know, another level of this dichotomy of, you know, we're good, no, we're good, you suck, you know. So it's just nice to read your books and see this and knowing, oh, okay, here's my point, here's the stuff to back it up. And as we know with language, is you've made it clear here, and you made it clear in the last episode, and everything else you've done, it's going to give you the answer. It's dull, it's boring, it might suck to go through and sift through, but it's gonna tell you what needs to be said and what the truth is. So anyway, for me, that was just a breath of fresh air.
Well, real quick, I don't want to get off of Venus yet.
Yeah.
Because this is where it gets, she's also Columbia.
Okay, well, yeah, we'll go. Well, real quick, Rob,
So,
did you want to say anything real quick?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Me?
Yeah, did you want to add anything real quick?
Yeah, no, man. I'm honestly just digging, listening to Dylan go off live, man.
We'll get
I've
you
got a bunch
going.
of questions, but
Okay,
yeah.
We'll wind you up in a second, Rob. We'll let you loose on the audience in a second. But
yeah.
This is my favorite part.
Think about that. Columbus, Columbia, right? The Column, the dove, the virgin priestesses. And that's why you have Columbia in pictures. And the goddess holding the torch, bearing the light bearer, Lucifer. So that's what you have, literally the district of Lucifer, of Mary, Maryland, Virginia, Virgin Mary. So our country's set up like that. Do you know what that symbol on the Islamic flag is, or in Islam, that crescent moon with the star? Do you know what that's called in astrology?
I'm gonna let you go.
Venus occultation, or the hiding of Venus. So that's something that happens when she's in that crescent phase and she's covering the star, or the star, the luminary Venus is right next to it. And so you could probably just go on Google images and search Venus occultation and it'll come up. But it's literally the hiding of Lucifer. And this is why Islam's Sabbath is on Friday, because going back to you people, Pat, Friday comes from Freya's day, who's begotten of Thor. Mm-hmm. So Friday is like the old Norse or Saxon, because it's like the same people, just different eras. And so Islam keeps their Sabbath on Freya's day, Lucifer's day. What does Freya mean? The lady. What does Notre Dame mean? Our Lady. What does Hera mean? The lady. Heracles, the pride of the lady. So you see, in Hercules is the sun, the pride of the sun in summer, of the virgin feminine archetype aspect of that triune nature of the Son, of God. And so that's why you see in like the Quran, it's written, "O Mary, God has chosen you and purified you. He has chosen you above all the women of creation." And you can see this in every other tradition, from Sarah, like in the Judaism, Sarah, Ceres. It's all going to pertain to this virgin, sacred, feminine, Rhea Silvia, the Vestal Virgin, Maria, Mother Rhea. So it's like, this is how the cult works, through names, languages, and symbols that they can rebrand and repackage anything. And if you know the language, you're not fooled for a second. If you don't know the language, then you're shit out of luck. And so I guess that's probably the best place to wrap up on Lucifer, unless you guys have other questions, and we can.
Dude, I love it, Rob. I'm
go from there.
If you have anything.
Well, just on the Columbia thing, isn't it also, you have column bia, right? So 2 columns, so 2 pillars. And I think the way that she's holding it too, in the pictures, with the in Hollywood and whatnot, I think it's right in the U, and her torch is right in between the U to actually split those pillars as well. And then you have the 2 pillars, the 2 towers, all that.
Yeah,
all that
because the sun is dividing 2 parts of the year: the covenant of works and the covenant of grace. So summer and winter. And
right.
Oh, you were saying something about that. Oh, so like even like pillars and the column and stuff like that. So that's like, if you look at the root of pillar, pila, that's what it means. That's where you see Pontius Pilate.
Yeah.
It's a pillar. So you're literally seeing Jesus getting crucified, Judgment Day. That's the autumnal equinox. Yeah. That's one of the 2 pillars.
So what's even cool,
and Pontius is like a great seat. Go ahead, but
no. So, but I think for those who get what we're saying here and are willing to go that extra mile, and I think you guys will appreciate this. we see all these false flags. Think about one of the biggest, most jarring ones that we saw even before, September of a certain year in the early 2000s. Think about guns, certain events, Columbine. That, if I recall, that was one that really set off the airwaves and shockwaves of many people in regards to a lot of this, what we would, not foreign and, foreign threats, but right here on our land internal, right? And we're still seeing that effects, right? And I'm not here to bring up what's happening in the news right now. We all know the jury stuff. That's not important, but just think about the words. And this is why it's everywhere.
Columbine.
Huh?
Isn't that like a flower too? Isn't that like a flower there? Like
something like that. But it's just interesting is when people go, oh, like, oh, so it's all connected. Yeah. Yes, it is.
and that's a hard pill to swallow because you don't want to think that people spend this much energy plotting, but they do because they're not at work 8 hours a day like you trying to pay rent or whatever. They can create wealth however they want.
Right.
And they have a network, and that's like that saying, your net worth is your network. And when you're part of a cult, that's your network. You're never going to lose.
Right.
Unless some sort of upheaval happens and the cult itself is destroyed, which is always a possibility. But so why is this important is because how many times have you had somebody talk about something occult or talk about sacred knowledge or something like that, and then you have all these Abrahamics in the comments calling them Luciferian? That's the ultimate ignorance because you are Luciferian by definition, by way of Mary. I just proved it. Mary, Maria, Marina, right? Marina Abramovic, Marina, the seas of Abram, of the father of the Most High, Abba, Rama, father of the Most High. Marina, Lucifer, Abramovic. It's in her name too. And what happened in 2016? That's why I'm fucking shadow banned out the wazoo. I took the bait on a lot of that shit. That's when I had a big account with like 70,000 followers on Twitter. And then I went from having I would look at my tweets, I'd get like almost 500,000 impressions. Now I get like 1,200 impressions. And you see how everything, the shadow banning with the internet, the reason the digital world is such slavery is because they can link up to everything and censor anything related to that. So it doesn't matter if I create other accounts, I'm done. On those platforms, I'm done. I have no voice anymore. And so it sucks, but that's why it's on whoever sees this. If it's time for you to carry the torch or bear the light. And that would be the good aspect, because if you're carrying the torches of truth, you are bearing the light. You are Luciferian in a holistic way, not a Abrahamic degenerate masculine way. And that's like how you can see that it's all perverted by Christians and stuff anyways, because they think of it as a masculine archetype. And there's nothing about that character that's masculine other than the fact that it's the sun. And the sun is hermaphroditic. And that's what people have trouble reconciling. And this is due to the really just like the corrupt translations that the Jews did, the modern Jews, and they've covered up. They've mistranslated words. I can go into that if you want, but they've mistranslated words to hide certain things so you don't discover what you're looking at. And so there's a word, for instance, that people say Elohim, which is gods, right? But that is not an accurate, that's modern Hebrew, trash. It's not, if you're going to learn Hebrew, you got to go to the old synagogue copies. Old synagogue Hebrew or nothing. That's the bridge to the ancient world. And so that word Elohim is actually, going back to what we were saying last episode, what I'm going to be exposing in my current book, that root is A-L, not E-L. E-L is the corruption of that. And that is Arabic. Aleph, Lamed, A-L. And that's an old name of God, the Sun, in the Arab world. And then the feminine version of that would be A-L-E, Ale, right? So that's where you have God, and then it comes to goddess. And that I am that you see at the terminating in Elohim, right? Because remember I told you that the H and the E is interchangeable in Hebrew and Greek. So what they've done is they've done Elohim, the modern Jews. But the old way, it should only be Aleim. And now you have goddesses, and plural, you add that im after. Now, in modern Hebrew, the general rule is that when you see that termination of yud, mem, im, it's going to be for masculine plurality. But that's not a straight rule because there's plenty of female words like she goats or she bears, like azim, right? Which would look like in modern Hebrew, like ezim, or just ez. And then you add the im, it's she goats. Or bear, which is, it looks like db, but it's dove. Sounds exactly like dove, because the B and the V are interchangeable. Remember I told you about Job and Yov? The book of Yov, not Job. Because they don't know, people who are doing this are either deceiving or they don't know what they're looking at. And so she bears be dovim. And so that im is not always masculine. So when you actually transliterate it the way it's supposed to be, alaim, you now have goddesses. Why? Because that is, in the Greek, it would be totion, or the whole deity. Elohim, it's gods. It's the Trinity. So you don't see the Trinity in the Bible written as like a literal word, but it's in that, the gods, Elohim. But why would a translator call that God when it's clearly plural and it's clearly feminine? And it's clearly an Arabic root, not Hebrew root. Because motherfuckers are corrupt, disingenuous, and working for the church, which is the closest thing to being of the devil that this world has ever seen.
Yep.
And they've stolen Chaldean manuscripts and gospels from the Greek world and mixed them all together to what they wanted to put forth, and that's it. And they've left out everything else and covered up everything else. And they don't have original documents because there are none, because none of these were made by original historical people. It's a cult deceiving you. And so you would also have so one of the things that they cover up, so Elohim is a big one, right? How many different words can you call God? Adonis, Adonai, Adonis in Greek is the son, right? Adonai, my lords, the lords. Well, because that comes from Egypt, because when Egypt left, whatever that was, and the Phoenicians and the Greeks, and they went to Phoenicia, Greece, and China and split up. Well, that root word, Don, means Lord, Adon. That's why I come from a Phoenician background, right? The sea people, they went to Venice and became Venetian. That is what the patriarchs of our families are called, Dons. And ironically, going back to the Agams and the Norse runes and the early Phoenician language, they all look very similar. And the last Don in my family looked more like you, Pat. Platinum blonde hair, light blue eyes.
Interesting.
And even when you look at all the quote unquote Semitic languages, because let's just debunk that now because I'm in the flow, even the highest ranking members of the church will admit that the word Semite is a word that was used as convenience to lump all these languages in. And there's actually no such thing as a Semite because it's predicated on speaking a language that was descended from Noah's son Shem, who I already explained in a previous episode is summer. Shem, Shemite. You're a son of summer? No. There is no such thing as a Semite. There is no such thing as an anti-Semite. And so when you're looking at these languages, this idea that you have the way these Bibles are transliterated and translated are not matching up with timelines. And imagine living in a society where anytime you talk about something, they consider you racist or they call you an anti-Semite. But if you know what it really is, and even in that context, the Phoenicians, they admit the Phoenicians were not a Semitic people. They're like, so you mean to tell me that the Phoenicians who aren't a Semitic people created the Semitic languages, because they're all coming from the Phoenician alphabet.
Right. It's
bullshit.
Yeah. It's like people being like, "Oh, do you speak whatever Star Trek? Like, do you speak Spock's language?" It's like, yeah, like we created
Klingon.
What? Klingon? Yeah, Klingon. It's like, yeah, we're the people.
Oh, that's not Spock. I'm sorry, that's not Spock.
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't watch that shit. I'm not a nerd.
I don't know. I don't know either. But it is a correlation, right? It's like we're not really these things, but we're creating this language. Like I'm whatever his name is, fucking George Martin, creating an entire language. He's not those things in his books, those stories. However, there's a language that they've created, and and that's just what's interesting is when you see it as these are just stories, these are allegories, and obviously deception, and you can understand that, really truly understand that. You're like, oh man, this is
well. If you read them, if you read like Lord of the Rings as it is, like an allegory and fiction, it's amazing. And you should read it to your children, and there's awesome lessons. That's the power of allegory and fable. It's when you pass them off as history and truth, like actual literal history, that is deceptive. That's evil. You're lying to people. It's just like when you give your child a globe or whatever. Now, what if the earth turned out to be a lot bigger? I don't know. As it is, that is a lie. So when you give that to a child, that child's going to grow up to be handicapped and go through what we went through if they ever decide to look into the truth, which is years of like mind fuckery. Yeah. And so going back to that Trinity, you had the Alaim or Elohim, right? The goddesses or gods, however you want to do that, but it really is goddesses if you look at the old way. Then you would have another thing these deceptive motherfuckers changed. So you see this word like in the first chapter of Genesis, in the beginning. They've translated something in the beginning. And what they'll tell you is in modern Hebrew, it's Bereshit, in the beginning. But the root of that is Reshit, should be Resh, Shin, Yod, Tav. No, sorry. Yeah. Resh. So Reshit. So the old Jews would translate that. An old synagogue Hebrew would transliterate that as like Rasit. Sorry, I'm really fucking slow with languages because I've learned them all at the same time, dude, and not speaking them just by looking at them. So like half the time you might hear me spell something in Greek and Hebrew, and I'm not aware that I'm doing so. Like I have to really like a little child when it comes to this. So you just got to bear with me.
You're literally doing like 15 different languages back and
it's
forth.
Fucking hard. So it's fucking hard. But
Spanish class, which is what Jan said. It's like, oh, you speak one language, you're American, and that's part of this deception. This is what they're trying to do is don't allow people to know multiple languages, because if you do, this is what happens. You start to see these.
Well, going back to what we were talking about yesterday, though, they're all the same language. They just dress the letters up in different symbols, and that is what's confusing. Is you now have to learn different symbols for the same fucking letters, and you're like, what? Yeah. And that's what's kind of cool. So it gets easier. You just got to do that monotonous work, and it's so frustrating. So, anyways, going back to that word Reshit. So modern Hebrews transliterate it as like Reshit, I think. But the old world, it's Rasit. And you're just supposed to know when to pronounce the sh and when to pronounce the long S, so this is Reshit. Now, here's the kicker. In that first thing in Genesis, you're going to see P.A.T in front of it, or P.A.T, which is like a B or a V, depending on, like in Dove, bear, it's like a V. So in this one, now they've taken it as Bereshit because they put that particle B in front of the Reshit. So they've turned it into Bereshit. However, they look at it like one word, but it's two. And so they'll tell you it's in the beginning, but the actual literal meaning, according to all the authorities of even the modern Jews of like the 1200s, will tell you that word Reshit means wisdom. And when you add that B in front of it, or V, it's by wisdom. Not in the beginning, God created by wisdom. Why would they cover that up? Because now you're looking at the Trinity of Kabbalah, the Sephirah, the Tree of Life, the doctrine of emanations. By wisdom, God created. Going and then where they even hang up, they get caught with their hands in the cookie jar again in John. I believe it's John. You have to double check because I'm doing this all off the top of my head. In the what was the word?
In the beginning.
Beginning.
No, because now this one is just Rashid. No B particle.
Right.
No particle B in front of it. It's just Resh, Shin, Yud, Tav. Rashid. Wisdom was the word. What is wisdom? Logos. Logos is the word. What was Mercury called? Logos by the Gentiles.
Right.
Long before the days of Jesus. So what they have done is they have been caught mistranslating this shit. They still say in the beginning was the word, but there's no B in front of it. And I even suspect this because it's observable that the New Testament was written in Latin first and then transliterated to older languages to make it appear older. Well, it's also observable that the Old Testament was written in Greek first.
It's first.
And that's where the deception is coming. They're telling you the original documents were Hebrew.
No.
Nope. They wouldn't be making all these mistakes. And so now you have people telling you in the beginning was the word when it should just say wisdom was the word. And you wouldn't make that mistake twice. And then the third component of that Trinity, so you have the Word, the Logos, the Son, you have Elohim, be like the whole deity, or Totheon. And then you have Ruach, which would transliterate into R-U-H in English. That's like the breath or the spirit. That's the Holy Spirit. So those three things are the Trinity. And you can see how they've taken, why would they cover this up? Well, it's the same reason that the Persians, when they destroyed everybody else's temples, restored the Jewish temples, because they're the same religion. So the priest class is going to preserve its own. And they are very, like the first thing the high priest of any cult does when their nation is conquered is they hand the keys to the city to the conqueror. As long as you let us keep our tithes and all that money coming in, you're the boss now. We swear fealty to you. And that's all they care about, because after a while, they know how to manipulate all these rulers and all the people around the rulers. And you can see this, like, especially with the Jesuits and what they did in Europe, and how, like, these fucking idiot kings actually, like, start fearing damnation when they start reflecting on their life and, like, how can I get to heaven? I've done so many bad things. It's like, oh, you want to get to heaven, Louis? Well, God requires this of you. Huguenots. Burn all the heretics. Take all their property. Kill the infidel. And the kings are like, oh man. And then they do it because they're scared of going to hell. That's how powerful. They kill innocent people to avoid going to hell because they believe some pedophile freak show priest is going to prevent them from going to hell if he didn't do all this bad shit and kill 250,000 people. So why does this shit matter to me? Because of what I just said. It's not that any of it matters to me other than the fact that people are so superstitious that they will literally do horrific things thinking they're doing good things. And that's only possible if you believe in lies.
And it's freaking, that was dude, that flow was awesome. But what's so interesting about that is as we experience today, what you're hearing a lot of people say is like, I did the best I could. I thought I was only doing what I thought was right. And when you really listen to what people are saying and then their actions, I mean, a lot of us know it's like, doesn't line up. And that's the same exact thing. maybe you're not the one specifically going and committing these actual crimes, but you're playing a big part. Many people are playing that part. And if we truly are about people wanting to be in a place of wisdom, logos, love, the breath, being in the present moment, things I talk about all the time. It's about having the gratitude. It's about having true love, not the pedophilic love, but like true love for your fellow man and woman, in order to, again, be in this perfect creation, give that energy back to this perfect creation, and not just this destructive nature. And this is why, in my opinion, from what I've gathered, this is why we're in this repetitive cycle of chaos and destruction, is because we're continually falling for all these little bits and pieces. It's like, oh, I woke up to this, but now I'm still in this other one and have no idea. This is why
It's heartbreaking because these people are would be like our best friends, right? Like we have more in common with the average shopkeeper in Persia, in like the Asian world, in we have more in common with the people we've been taught to hate. And none of this would be possible if it weren't for people abusing religious beliefs and telling you, oh, they're heathens.
Right.
Gotta kill those Saracens, like their rock is not as our rock.
Right. That's fucking crazy, man. Rob, anything you want to add?
That's the real demonic. Yeah, Rob, we bogarted the mic. Rob, it's your turn. Get in there.
Yeah, no, I'm just trying to soak it all in, man. I just, for me,
it's heavy.
I'm just curious. I always try to like frame this as to maybe what people are hearing as well too, is so when you say all that stuff about Lucifer, right? I think a lot of minds will shut and then go, well, is what you're saying then that evil doesn't actually mean anything, because if Lucifer is all these things and Lucifer is evil, then thus you're saying nothing is evil, and then it kind of like that spiral down into saying, okay, well, what do I make? You've just essentially brought out the foundation from underneath me with all this information you just did. But then now, how do you explain evil and how do you explain all these kind of things? And I'm wondering if maybe you can touch on the difference between maybe Lucifer as what they're trying to, when they took it out of the Trinity, right? The destroyer or whatever. And then maybe like what Satanism or what Satan, I guess, maybe is that any different? Do you know what I mean?
Ultimately, when you look at Satanism, you're not looking at Satanism, the actual tradition versus what the Christians think Satanism is are two different things.
Mm-hmm.
And so before anybody comments, I think all of you are fucking crazy. And I'm not in any of that construct. I'm not Abrahamic. I'm none of that, man. I'm a man and I'm not part of anybody's collective. And you can go fucking fight over your fables and your stories. I'm here for the real men of this world and the authentic women to say, if you don't want to be bound by these priest class, these magi of Persia, these druids, these priests of Egypt, the priests of Apollo, the fathers of if you don't want to be bound by these freaks, then you need to stop buying their bullshit. Now, just to highlight Satanism real quick, it's broken down into 4 major tenets. The best person to look into for this would be Mark Passio, as a former priest of Satanism that was appointed by Anton LaVey. He's the one that pulled me out and showed me what that was going on. 4 major tenets. First is self-preservation above all else. Second is moral relativism. And the way they do that is they play into people's solipsism, which is the idea that since you can't be really sure of what truth is outside of your own perspective, then there is no such thing as truth, and you get to decide what's right for you based on your whims, because if there's no truth, then there's no right and wrong. And then the third one, that leads to what they call eugenics or social Darwinism, and that's like the divine right of kings, or like this idea that we are ruling because our blood is different and we are destined to rule by us being closely related to God. And a janitor, well, he's just a janitor because of his inferior DNA, and that's life. Your lot in life is based on your genetics. And then it leads to ultimately the 4th major tenet, which is eugenics, which you see all around you today. And it's this idea that you can tailor the genes that you want to a population. Eugenics just means well-born. And so that's why these people are so obsessed with like breeding in their own families and all that stuff and preserving their wealth and keeping this weird thing intact. And they all look like troglodytes, inbred troglodytes. They don't look attractive at all. And yet they're so obsessed with this. And I think the reason for that is because they're so ugly and they hate themselves so much that they want to control other people. Now, Luciferianism is not to be equated with Satanism, just like any other tradition is not really meant to be equated with Satanism, but Satanism is like the umbrella of everything, right? Because anytime you engage in moral relativism, and we all do it, like this, when you look at this world, everything has to be destroyed in order for something to be created or to live. And so the reason Satanism was so successful is it catered to strictly the animal plane of consciousness and not the higher minded consciousness that says, well, is this right or wrong? Okay, should I do it? If it's wrong, do I need to do this? And it's that constant struggle of creation and destruction, God, the devil, good and evil. And that constant change is the stability or preserver or savior. Because what happens when you preserve something? You save it. So savior is a big word because when you look at Moses in the Egyptian world, and I'm just saying Egyptian world because it's for context. It wasn't called Egypt, but just for the sake of people, where people know where I'm talking about. Moshe, was a name for the initiates. That's why the baptism is such a sacred ritual, because you're being anointed or delivered or saved by the waters, and you're embarking a new life. You're being born again. And so Moshe would be spelled in Hebrew, Mem, Shin, He, or M-S-E. And that's what it means, Moshe, Moses, right? Now, keep in mind, the H and the E are interchangeable. So as a noun, well, you have, as a verb, M-S-H is the anointed. But as a noun, it's Moshach. It would be oil, just like Christos is the anointed, the oil, because Jesus, or the Christos, is Moses.
Yep.
It's just a repackaged character in a different era.
Dude.
And I just proved it to you. The anointed. It's unmistakable. Moshach.
Dude, and what's cool, and just real quick, a shout out to one of the bears, Copper Bear. She reached out to me, being like, talking about the relationship of the spinal fluid, the cerebral spinal fluid, and then you talk a lot about this in regards to Christos, the oil, and how in her family.
Where was he crucified? A hill named Skull?
Mm-hmm.
Golgotha? What?
Yep. And what's interesting,
and that's the ganglia, the nerve ganglia from your eyeballs, brain, all the way down. Summer, that's that cross. You see that cross? You get the solstices.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Sometimes there's three hash marks because you got the equator in there.
Yeah, and that's what's that I love, and that's what I love is that it really is all these things in these practices that we have in our modern day, things we say. And I know, Chloe talks a lot about this, like, words have meaning, right? And it's really knowing this work that you're doing. It's confusing. There's a lot of things interchangeable, but it really is all connected. And not to just real quick to plug again your books, man. It's like you put the time in to make this clear for anyone to read. And you even say your books.
My books are a lot clearer. It's harder for me to talk about it because I'm not used to talking about it. You know what I mean? Like I keep to myself because this information triggers people.
Well, exactly. But real quick on that point, I just in my head every time you talk, I'm like, gosh, I just wish one day we were all around you when someone would be like say something to you in just a way where it was like, it's like, nothing, and be like, hold my beer.
Well, so I live in an area that's like really religious. Like people invite me to their church all the time. Like they love it. Like when I start, because like they'll be like, do you know Jesus? And I'm like, I do. Like I can sit here and swear to God and say, yes, Jesus is my Lord and Savior. Yes, I am Christian. I know what Christos means. I know what culture created it. I know what people in that culture created it. And I know what that word Christos meant to that people. If you as a Christian don't know that, guess what? You're Christian in name only. You're not an actual Christian. You're a byproduct of Christianism, which is and always has been and will only ever be the church, which is named after Circe or Circe, the goddess of pharmakeia, which is sorcery through witchcraft. Or sorry, sorcery through drugs or witchcraft through drugs. Pharmakeia, pharmacy, right?
Yeah.
So
going right back to Game of Thrones and George R. R. Martin.
Yeah.
With Cersei.
Yeah. So
right.
Circe, Circe in Latin, or in German or Danish, Kirke, and then in English, church. That's why you have Captain Kirk, Kirke, church, because it's just business. It's the enterprise.
See, this is the stuff, man. Like now, like being a dad, like having a family, you know, not watching the pornos, doing all that stuff. Where it's just now, it's like this is stuff where I'm like, does anybody else get fucking about this? I'm like walking down the street, man, and I meet parents at places. I'm like, y'all know about like magic? They're like, not the
yeah, like that Harry Potter meme.
Yeah, like right,
the Harry Potter meme. He's like, you want to buy some magic? And he's all like strung out in the fucking car.
Dude, that's honestly how I feel at times. Where I'm like, do you know about this shit? But it's so fascinating. And what's cool, and then maybe if you guys want to stay on this route, if there's anything you want to add to it, I was gonna maybe shift us a little bit into kind of how this actually pertains to some of the law stuff. This maybe not random or new to anyone else who watches the show, but for those who may be stumbling upon this as we're experiencing a lot of the law, especially in your second book, you bring it up a lot in the Blackest of Magick, the Blackest of All Magick. There's a lot of stuff pertaining to law, and it
is indeed the blackest. The legal shit is the blackest of all magic. It's worse than the religious shit.
So I thought maybe we can kind of veer that way, being that a lot of our law in the words and phrases and terminology of things that we use has everything to do with water and water terms.
Maritime. Oh, I know what I want to say. Going back to Adonis. Yeah. Adonai, lords, right? How many words do you have that are plural that you just translate as God when it's literally God's? Well, you have this guy in the Bible named Adam. Keeping in mind that Greek words don't terminate in M, you have an old name of Kronos, Adanos. That would be Alpha, Delta, Alpha, Nu, Omicron, Sigma. Adonos. Adonis. Adam. Adam. Kronos. First man. That's irreconcilable. And what you also, they'll tell you it's from Adama. Earth, whatever. There's also that hermaphroditic stuff in Adam because just like with Yova, right? Yod, He, Vav, He. The name Eve is just it's Yova without the Yod. He, Vav, He. E-V-E. Remember I told you that the E's can be transliterated as H's or E's, and the Vavs can be transliterated as V, W, or U. So in this case, it's Eve.
Right.
Well, Eve is the old name of Bacchus, the sun that was worshipped in the form of a serpent in Asia Minor. This is on historical record. Adam, so you have Eve in the name Jehovah, female and male. Because Jupiter is both a man and an eternal maid, because it's the sun. Now you have, with Adam, you have the root dam, D-A-M. That's Old Saxon for woman. That's where the word dame comes from, right, in English. But if you read it like Hebrew in reverse, as is often done, you would have M-A-D, mad. And that is the root in multiple languages for mother, madre. Tu madre, your mother.
Dude, this shit.
So you have this hermaphroditic shit and I'm trying to teach people, but they just look at me like,
because like this goes, I mean, dude, it's fucking
there's
great.
no great awakening. There are some people that are working on themselves, but as a society, just
Right.
the planes have already hit the building, or the CGI has already hit the building. Whatever, something has hit the building. Get the fuck out of the building. Don't be a hero.
Well,
That's where I'm at.
Dude, absolutely, man. And this is what's so freaking awesome about this, but it also brings up some truths about people, is that you can't comprehend as an individual. Majority of people, even the ones who are awake, supposedly, can't comprehend that this stuff is this intricate. They can't comprehend it. And I can understand it through my journey. Rob, I feel like I speak for you, but I'll let you chime in here in one quick second. But I truly want to bring this back to one thing that the three of us have in common, other than just wanting to understand truth, is that we have a film background. And this is important because when you understand that that is, the man.
Hey, if you guys are making any movies that need like a sexy Italian pool boy,
dude, we actually are making a feature film. So
holler, I'll be like the guinea that just like comes on and like nails all the hot chicks and then leaves, and everybody's like, who the fuck was that?
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding.
Film it all for real.
Yeah. Yeah, we want we're the right shot, man. But anyway, but the point is that we get what it means to try to tell a story and having all these intricacies, and someone's going, geez, that much thought went into just this hour and a half film or 15-minute show.
Yes.
And it goes, yes, that's how deep it goes. And it's not even close to what we're talking about here, but having that wherewithal to know that people go in that much depth to deceive, because that's really what we're doing. We're creating a deception. We're bringing you into a world that is not real. We're bringing you into a relationship with these characters that are not real, even if they're
no. I would say we're not deceiving because you know ahead of time that it's not real. I think it would be. I think like the metaverse shit is going to be like closer to deception. Like what they're doing to those cows. You ever seen those like virtual reality things they put on cows, and it just shows them like green pastures, and they're like in a dump just so they produce better milk? That's deception.
Holy shit.
Okay, so I mean, creating, you're creating essentially something that obviously isn't real, but you're bringing somebody into the story. You're bringing somebody into an emotion. You're trying to create an emotion, right? And that's essentially what a lot of good film and good acting does, and a lot of good storytelling is you're bringing an emotion to the surface so people can relate. And then obviously, depending if you're doing it to tell a positive message, hopefully inspire people, get people to maybe do good in their life rather than being like, oh my gosh, like the world's trying out to get me kind of thing. So I just thought that I just wanted to chime in with that. But anything?
Hey, real quick. Before we get into the Blackest of All Magick stuff, I named the book after that chapter. It's chapter 6. It's called The Blackest of All Magick. So even if this religious symbolism and language stuff is too intense for you and not something that you want to get into, if you go on Google and search, I don't know if you can see that. The Blackest of All Magick. Magic is spelled Magick, and Wattpad. That first result, I made the entire chapter free because it's that important. So you can just go there, click that, and read that whole chapter and see how fucked our country is and how long it's been going on as far as the legal world is concerned.
I'll put that in the show notes. If you can just text that to me, I'll make sure I get it easy for everyone to access. But real quick, Rob, do you want anything before we dive into the Blackest of All Magick?
Yeah, no, I just wanted to pick up on what you were talking about there, where I found a lot of connection to reading your work, Dylan. And then I reached out to Patrick when he first started his podcast because of his background in film. And when you were on Crow and when he was saying that stuff about the problem that I think people have is they're not capable of thinking about the sun as a different character in different plays in a repertoire, right? But it's something that really it hit with me because I can immediately conceptualize that because of my background. And I think that sometimes when people hear this stuff, it's kind of difficult because the framework that I have was from people like Crow and whatnot, because you have him talking about the sky clock and the zodiac, and then you have the salts of salvation, which is relating the zodiac to the human body. So you have the zodiac in relation to the year, the zodiac in relation to the body. So I can, when you're breaking down Revelation and all that sort of stuff and everything you've been talking about tonight, I can conceptualize it in my head because I kind of have those backgrounds. And it's just, it's almost one of those things where you can't even talk to people who are religious of nature or Christian or Catholic or anything like that, because they don't believe any of that stuff. And if it's a heliocentric model, it's like, can you even approach this conversation with that conceptualization?
It's really like it's weird because there's so many weirdos involved with those Matrix movies. But if you recall, like when he's like, we don't usually unplug people as old as you because there's just a certain place you get in your life, and you can't wake somebody up. You can't. This is for all the shit that I get and for how much my life has been censored, and like my ability to just make a living like everybody else through like marketing online is so fucked. And I've never really gone to other people's profiles and been that guy that's like showing shit in the comments and like starting stuff. Like I've only just ever done it on my profiles, right? And I'll use hashtags and stuff to attract people, but that was back before all the censorship. But it's like my experience is it's, you know, keep in mind that the Bible there are some legitimate things in it. There is truth in it. It's just not literal historical truth. And that's what people have a hard time with. And one of those things is don't cast your pearls before pigs, because they don't know the value of what you're trying to share with them. So oftentimes, and I'm not knocking people because that's probably the way I am too. Like if I didn't get somewhat blackballed or wasn't running, like, every bridge that I've ever tried to cross and do something in my life, there's like a gay Harvey Weinstein troll saying, pay the gay troll toll to pass, boy. Let me suck your dick and then I'll get you into the kingdom. It's like, man, I'm not into that kingdom. I'm going to get out of here. It's like, you can't help people until you hit rock bottom and something needs to change. For me, it was having my dreams basically destroyed, realizing everything that I worked for was for nothing. And I can't facilitate what I want to facilitate because everybody in Hollywood is like this woke, nasty, like they don't resonate with me. They're not conservative in any way. They're not proud Americans. They're like, they want to destroy the fabric of society because in order for them to be what they are, they need to destroy everything. So it's acceptable for them to do all that bestiality and pedophile shit like they did in the Weimar Republic, right? Like that's what they're trying to go for. Hyperinflation, so everybody can come here and pimp us out, and pimp the women and the children out for nothing because the currency is so worthless. So you can go with like $100, from a strong currency into a cheap currency where that $100 is now like, lifetimes of, salaries. And you can get whatever you want. And that's what they're going to do here if people don't wake the fuck up. But they're not going to wake the fuck up. They're like a junkie that needs to hit rock bottom. So as awesome as it is for us to have these conversations, we've got to go our own way. Like if we're going to keep serving higher aspects of consciousness, well, then we can stick together and do our thing. But we can't constantly every person that falls down in the mud, we can't just like pick them up. If someone's near us and like you can pick them up and help them up to their feet, awesome. Some people don't want it. Some people you try to help them and they're like, get out of here, I'm taking a mud bath. And you're like, Jesus, dude, what the fuck? They like it.
Right.
They're into it. They want the ignorance. They like the slavery. They don't want the responsibility of being free. They like knowing somebody else is going to protect them. They like knowing somebody else is going to take on the burden of their karmic consequences by doing all their dirty work so they can just sit around and jerk off to porn and, order everything online and whatever else they're doing. You can't worry about other people. And that's why, like, even in like things like the Kabbalah or whatever, it'll say like the paths of wisdom are private. You got to walk them on your own.
Yep.
And it sucks because, I think part of our nature is when we see somebody else struggling, we want to help them. When we see something wrong with the world, we want to say, hey, this is wrong. Look at what they're doing. They're cheating or they're fucking, they're doing something immoral. And sometimes if it's bad enough, everybody will look at it and go, holy shit, and they'll do something about it. But if it doesn't have that viral aspect, it's like, over my head. It's above my pay grade to deal with, you know, like even modern cops today. They'll tell you, like, when I'm off duty, I'm not getting involved with anything because the system is so fucking rigged, I can't get involved.
Dude.
Maybe if there was an active shooter that was like going to get me, I would do something. But short of that, I'm not breaking up fights. I'm out.
Dude, my grandpa was a Polish cop for like over 35, 40 years. So in the heart of Chicago. So like I 100% know exactly what you're talking about.
The
It's
system is just too corrupt.
And we're kind of seeing that now with everything going on in the current state of the world, is that every mode of which people in the Matrix were relying on security, such as their insurance, such as their pension, such as great jobs like being a cop. It's actually every mode of you being in that system and being enslaved to it and being a cog in the machine for it. And everyone's just doing I'm just doing my job and all that kind of stuff, right? It's your mode of the securities are the things that are the mode of your enslavement.
absolutely, man.
Yeah. I mean, that's why I moved to where I live now. I'm not going to say it on the air, but I can carry whatever I want, whenever I want. I don't need a fucking permit. I love it. And people are so nice here and so respectful because they know everybody's packing heat, even like the old ladies.
Dude.
And there's no crime. There's like once in a while there'll be like a fight or something because people are drunk or something on a Saturday night. But other than that, you can leave your cars unlocked. You can leave your house unlocked. And nobody's going to fuck with it because everybody knows the stand your ground laws. You know, you go into someone's house uninvited, they can blow you away. And it's like, no big deal.
And through that fear of everyone being loaded, it's also understanding that it's driven by then respect. There's a respect at nature because you know everyone's there to protect themselves. It's that nice, hey, you know, you want to pick everybody up, but it's also knowing if someone's trying to pull you down, I'm not going to let you do that. You know,
there's also no masks here, no roll up your sleevers, none of that. It's all like,
dude, that's awesome, man.
Dude, I gotta get the hell out of Canada, man.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, I mean, for me, I've never worn a mask. I moved here because I was never gonna wear a mask, and I was at the point where I was ready to, like, you know, next person that tells me to do something I don't want to do is I'm gonna introduce him to you, God. So you better do something about it. And God was like, get his ass out of LA.
Right there.
Like literally like that. Like literally I was like, I'm like so ready to just be like, today is your day. You know? And like
right.
The universe heard it. They're like, he's finally not joking. Get him out of there. And you know, I came here and it's like, it's just really,
it's awesome, man.
This whole thing is non-existent where I live.
Dude.
Nothing closed down, nothing. It's like,
good for you, man.
Yeah.
It's awesome, dude. When you made the leap, and you know, it's always nice when you can see people who are going to these places that have that, but also knowing, you know,
it does suck though, because seeing it at some point, it's all gonna make its way here. Mm-hmm. If people don't, for me, I don't want to make my last stand in a place like California where they don't value me anyways. And it's so early on, like I'm never gonna be one of those people that sacrifices myself for an idea or like a culture or a country. No, it just, what I said earlier, something's hit the buildings. We don't have to fight over what's hit them. They're on fire. Get the fuck out. They're coming down. Get out. You don't need to be a hero. Get out of there. Nobody's going to remember you. Right. And it doesn't matter. Like your gift of life is more important than your need to resist tyranny. Yeah. And actually, tyranny is one of those words that has also been corrupted, because in the old days, in the Greek, tyrannos, it meant somebody who like fucks up the government and takes over, but leaves the citizenry alone. So that's why they don't like tyrants, because the tyrants are like the guys who are like, I'm sick of this shit, and fucks up all these corrupt people and restores and, you know, puts his own government in place. And so that's what they fear. That's why our founding fathers called it despotism, because it's not tyranny is actually against the establishment, whereas despotism is against the people.
Yeah. Interesting, dude. I love, like, I wish we were all closer. We can just sit and talk, man, because just the idea of like being at like a bar or just anywhere where we're outside and someone's like, yeah, let me get that. And they look over you like, man, I'm exhausted. You're like, do you know where the word exhausted comes from?
Yeah.
It's like going this random guy's like, cool, man. Like, I mean, here's the thing. I'd be the guy who'd be like, no shit, go on. I'm like, I don't even know you, man. You could be making this shit up. I'm like, you caught me, man. Like, what's cool is when you really do see how it is again, it's all the same language, just packaged fucking deceiving and things like that.
The one valuable thing about that Q shit and watching its virility early on, how it got so viral, what it did was using that Socratic method by asking people questions, and then people would look up questions, whatever. And so that's actually a good method to go about stuff. So like when people say like, do you know Jesus as your Lord and Savior? You know, and they start talking to me, I'll say, well, do you know this? And what does Christ mean? Do you know what that means in Greek? And then they'll say it, and then I can give them that whole Moses. But you know, like I'll say, do you know what this means in Hebrew? They'll say no, you know, and and it's just the constant, because every time you ask a question to someone and they don't know, they're like basically admitting their ignorance or their lack of understanding or lack of learning. And every time you ask somebody a question they don't know, you are keeping them in check. It's a psychological game you're playing, because if you don't do that, you get this ego that's like, well, no, Jesus saved my life. He came to me. And it's like, really now? And it's hard to talk to somebody who claims that a person named Jesus is visiting them and saving their life. You know, it's like, well, do I want to descend into that, or do I want to stick to what I can? And the best way to keep that shit in check is to ask questions that they don't know. And that keeps that humility front and center. So every time we approach a subject, you just admitted you don't know what that is, though.
Yeah, I mean, that's something.
And I'm learning you. I'm teaching you.
Right.
And you're taking my time, but I'm teaching you, and you just admitted you don't know. And people will be like, well, that's kind of arrogant, or that. Well, when you're dealing with ego, you have to be able to turn on your ego and dominate. And if you can't do that, get the fuck out of the arena.
Right. Absolutely, man. And this is one of the fun parts of this whole journey for me, Rob. Maybe you're in the same boat. Maybe you don't. There's a sense of, for me, of excitement of knowing, like, yeah, you're right. I don't know, but I'm here to listen. I'm ready to be an observer. I'm there to be a student and pupil and really learn things about this place we live, what's going on.
Because you're not a slave to your ego.
Right.
You're not a slave to your, you have to, that's what started me off. That's how I was only able to do this, because I'm just like, I used to buy into everything, man. I used to believe in like aliens and all that shit, because I had hung out with people who worked in the White House and told me that shit was real. Someone got me that book on angels and demons. They got me that book, Behold the Pale Horse by William Cooper. And he's all talking about aliens and all this shit. And I'm like, oh my God, I knew it. So what I used to think was, oh, they're building bases on the other side of the moon, and that's why we can't see anything up there. Nobody was more disappointed in heliocentrism being fake, because I would have been on the first fucking ticket to Mars to get the fuck away from you people. If I'm being honest, I was disappointed, because that means I'm stuck here with you motherfuckers. Not you two, but you know what I mean? Like, but nobody was more disappointed about heliocentrism than me. Trust it.
Dude,
you
had your bags packed in your astronaut outfit, which was probably,
I was like ready to go, man. Let's put the final frontier.
Was probably in better condition than the ones that they use. Yours actually probably could have managed better than the ones that they show us. But dude, it's funny, man. Rob.
Can I ask you? I'm curious, Dylan, with some of the things you've said before too, and like some of the tangents that you go on as well. I'm really curious, because I feel connected in that kind of same way, where I'm a bit younger than you. So when you probably were going through your stuff, I really was paying attention to Owen Benjamin's stuff as he was getting kicked out of Hollywood, was like when I was coming out of drama school over in England. So I didn't necessarily have the same thing where I had, witnessed it firsthand, but it was effectively the same confrontation with my ego and my entire life, my passion, all that stuff, where I was like, dude, do I go and sacrifice my soul, or do I say I have to do something different? So I'm wondering, like, when you kind of go on these, like, I feel like some people get triggered, and it's people not being okay with their own kind of their own ideas and whatnot. But is it not something that, because I kind of find this too with my podcast that I'm doing right now, is like I'm trying to talk to myself from before, because it's like I was that person, and I know what it's like to burn your entire life down and extinguish your passion, and then try to fire it up again and try to find something. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, you guys are catching me at like my midlife crisis. I've worked my whole life trying to do something. What do I do with my life now? I have no skills. I have this because like, you know, I was my motivation for researching this was like, what the fuck is going on in here? What is going on? Why is this place so? Because like, you know, in Hollywood, it's not like everybody's like slinking around the shadows like evil little fucking gay sprites like waiting to pounce on you. No, they come disguised as like your best friend. They're showing you opulence. They're higher minded. They talk to you about stuff and ideas that common people don't talk to you about. You know, like a lot of them are talking about sex, don't get me wrong, but there's also a lot of them that are talking about higher stuff. And it sucks because there's people you think you're friends with, but you're only friends so long as it's convenient and that you're useful to them. And if you like have like a disagreement, I think one of the things like you know, you mentioned Owen. One of the things I like about Owen is he reminds me of like my best friends from childhood, where like he's almost like slightly like got like Asperger's or something where there's like no filter on anything he says. He just like says exactly what he's thinking. And that's how like my best friends were growing up. Like I had this one guy we call he was ogeristic, you know, he's huge like him, and like he would always be like, question. And he would like pose some like weird philosophical like woo-woo subject. And half the time be like, what the fuck are you talking about? You fucking idiot. But it's like still your best friend. So like there's no fight and like everybody laughs and makes fun of each other and stuff. And Owen has that. Owen, it's like he always says, like, I might be wrong, but I'm not lying, you know? And I think what I didn't even know who Owen was until Savanier and him started going at it, because that's how I found out, because I used to follow Eric Dubay.
Oh my God.
Um,
Savannah.
and what's sad though is Eric Dubay had done some great work that Owen really has also come around to, that they probably would have been good friends if Eric wasn't fucking such a little diva about, you know what I mean, or whatever he was doing. I don't know how their interaction in person was, so I'm not going to take sides. But you know, so like Owen came around across my desk first with that, and then with David Weiss, before David Weiss made like some video, and it's like, Owen, talk to me, because he's like, I don't want to believe it's flat or whatever. He's like, just give me one fucking proof, you know, and like, so I think that was what was endearing about Owen, is he's not afraid to like uh, go through something publicly, and when he's wrong, he'll admit he's wrong, and when he's right, he'll stick with that. And he's got a lot of great insights. My favorite thing that he does is just like the whole family stuff and the homesteading stuff. I think that's, to me, that's kind of what I'm interested in now. Like this shit doesn't even interest me anymore. This is what I learned a decade ago or more, and my book has been out. My books have been out for years. Like this, even this Blackest of All Magick, that was published in 2018, and now people are, you know, starting to come around to that stuff. But like I only got traction because I went on Crow. So for me, it's like I already left this shit behind. So it's like, but you know, now it's like, well, if people are interested and want to talk and they're cool people, I'm happy to talk to them, because I have no other way to get myself out there anymore. And you know, it's just going back to what you're saying, Rob. It's just like I'm in a similar situation, but maybe more so because I'm like a finicky, picky Italian, and I can't be bothered to do shit that I don't want to do to get by in a system that I don't care about. And that's my problem that I have to overcome, is like I'm in a midlife crisis in a sense, because I don't know what I'm supposed to do with my life, and I don't want to just work a skilled labor job. It's not spiritually satisfying. Like what the thing that I loved about art, and you guys probably are in the same boat, is like when you do art, it's another way of mingling with divinity and connecting to God. When you're performing, when you're becoming, you know, like a real actor is a becomer. And what I loved about acting is like you can step in a role and you get to live in that world and experience those circumstances without living the lifetime of mistakes or whatever else leading up to those experiences. And they're always written with such high stakes possible that it's like an adrenaline rush, and it's really fun. And like, you know, like even being on set of like Valkyrie, when you're like in the middle of a fucking war and there's like live squibs going off and you got guns, or like being on the Pacific, you know, and dealing with like Dale Dye. Remember that I was like walking around and I had this dummy gun. He's like, come here, son, what do you got there? And he looks at, and I showed him, he's like, what the fuck? Get my actor a real fucking gun. And like, you know, and like he's like this OG that's been in like all the military movies, you know, and so he also trains people, and like just all this fun stuff, being around all that, and like being on set, like they're creating rain and like tropically, they fucking planted palm trees and shit at Disney Ranch, and they've dug foxholes, and like you're getting this sense of like what it's like to be in that environment without actually going and being in that environment and losing your life. And you know, it's like that, those sayings where like a wise person can learn through mistakes, but a wiser person learns through the mistakes of others. And that's a really good way to grow, is through art and through this stuff. And for me, that's what I loved about it. And I wanted to give that back to other people someday because of how much it's helped me in my own life. And I had no idea that there was all these weird cults and freak shows and I was so naive, dude. When I first went out there, I thought everybody famous was like, the reason they were famous is because they were nice and fun to work with.
Right.
That like literally like the rose glasses were like this fucking thick, and I was like, hey everybody, I'm here, we're gonna make some movies, you know. And like I was like so naive, like I was like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna go to Hollywood, I'm gonna fucking jam with the Chili Peppers and you know and make movies. And so like I'm 20 years old going out there for my first summer. Within the first month, I'm fucking meeting and talking to John Frusciante at the Knitting Factory. He's like one of like the closest thing I ever had to like an idol, because I really loved his music and the way he plays guitar, his solo music, and his work with the Chili Peppers. And I'm like, yeah, I'm giving him my music that I've made with like, you know, trying to like hang out with him, and like, well, I wanted to be his apprentice. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to play music and fucking make movies and make art. And so like when that shit's all taken away from you and you realize it's not, the only way you're going to make it in that system is if A, you're willing to go along with them, or B, you create such a storm in whatever else you're doing that you can't be ignored because people love you so much. So there is that possibility. Right. So I've not entirely given up, and I would love to get my fiction series made into movies. And that's what I would really like to start going back to writing. But I don't have, like, I have to focus right now. I'm finishing these other 2 books, and I'm probably stepping away for a while because I'm going to have to learn like a skill, or I'm going to have to like apprentice somewhere or get another job, because I can't survive doing this right now. If my books start selling more, then I can start investing more into it. But that's where I'm at. And you guys don't have to be ashamed if you don't know where you're going in life, because we're in uncharted territory, and everything that we grew up thinking, the system, the way you make money and all that stuff, that's all gone now. So you have to adapt, and you have to get with like the internet, ways to make money online and all that other stuff, and entrepreneurialism. And that's scary for us because school doesn't teach you entrepreneurialism.
Absolutely, man.
School teaches you to be a slave. So that's why a lot of these people who are wildly successful dropped out of school and did their own thing, you know?
Absolutely.
So I'm in the midlife crisis. Just to say, don't feel bad, Rob, if you like didn't come out here, because the worst thing you could have done is come out to America and moved like I did, moved there without knowing a soul and kind of being around all this shit and not really having anyone to talk to about it. And like when I do talk to my friends and stuff, they'd be like, you're fucking crazy.
Right.
That guy's not gay. I love his movies. I'm like, there's no correlation there, buddy.
Right.
He's fucking raging, you know, and he's also a predator. And none of these people are who you think they are. They're act whores. And I don't even like saying the word actor, because in Black's legal dictionary, I forget which version, or Black's law dictionary, an actor is a slave who tends to his master's business affairs. And that's what they mean by bad actor. It's bad slave. So.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that, man. And it is powerful, because I like Rob, myself, a lot of people are going through that. Like, what do I do? And it's not easy. This road, as you said, it's lonely in many ways. It's not easy, but as much as you said about having to kind of roll with the punches, moving with what's available, learning new skills, obviously using technology, as much as it has its downfalls, there is a positive to it, because it is allowing things like this to occur, where we know, like I know right now, like I can go to, if I were to go to Canada, like I know I have someone I can depend on. Like I know without a shadow of a doubt, people are like, oh, they're just internet friends. Like, yeah, but there's so much that's grown from it. You know where you are, same thing, you guys, same with here. And it's and there's a power to that. And I know Owen even talks about like taking the meta world and like trying to bring the positive that you can get from that into the real life, like with the bear meetups and just people actually being active and proactive and not just consumers, and like really supporting one another, like, you know, with your books, not just to help you make a living, but I want people to get that information. It's like, I'll do my damnedest to make sure I talk to everyone and anyone to just get it in their ear, just being persistent of like, go read these books, go look into it, go.
The artist is that important because somebody who's encoding this knowledge the right way can make incredible art with it.
And that's
Whereas
what we're
it
doing.
won't be like what Chance was talking about, how Hollywood cannibalizes all these old archetypes. Well, my work is helping people make sense of these archetypes, and then they can create characters based on them to actually show the truth of those archetypes.
And this is the sync with what we're doing, man, is that I haven't read your books yet, those other ones, but Rob and I were both like, let's make something. Let's make something that is showing the positive of filmmaking and storytelling, and really something that people can get behind and know that, hey, this is a story that is entertaining, it's funny, but it's getting to the heart of the matter and showing all that same stuff, but from the lens of not trying to screw you over, trying to make you feel bad about yourself, not trying to do all the fucking crazy stuff that they're trying to do. So we're all in the same boat, and that's.
Well, what's funny is my fantasy series was like a way to allegorically encode my life experience and what's going on and some of the solutions. And then shit just started deteriorating so bad that I was like, I gotta abandon this. I was like, fuck, I'm putting my work out there. Like, people are too confused, and I don't have time to like hide things in allegory. So that was like the impetus, because I was doing it like the Tale of Honora is more alchemical stuff encoded, because I feel like talking about alchemy is not doing it justice. And alchemy is something that also needs to be done through symbolism and through story. And that's where I was going with that. And it's like a tale of honor. Honora is based on honor, and that's what this system is all about, staying in honor. And so we don't have to, we can sit here and bitch about it, but this is the system, and we can't change it. Until it collapses, which it probably won't, we can't change it. So we have to be men and say, are we going to get mad, or are we going to get fucking realistic and learn how to win within the system, or avoid the system? And I prefer the latter, to avoid the system. I don't think people should try to play the game, but if you want to, just learn how to play the game and then fight fire with fire if that's your calling. It's not my calling. I don't like that.
Well,
I can't deal with lesser men and nerds dictating me their fucking, hey, well, this word actually means this in legalese, and you've just stepped in my trap. And I'm just like, burn them all.
Yep.
Who's got the crucifixes? Let's get this party started. We're going to make something called Woden's Forest. We're going to nail all these guys to crosses of Nero, immolate them, and turn them into monuments, and make a nice plaque with all of their wicked deeds listed, and make it a national park, so people have to walk through it in like field trips and see what we're not fucking tolerating in our country ever again. That's what if you want to make me in charge, that's what will be done. I'm not fucking sitting here trying to play checkers or chess with these fucking nerds who are trying to kill us through proxy.
Right.
No, hell no. I'm not down with that. So call me when you're ready to start doing the dark work that needs doing. Other than that, I don't fucking give a shit about your, oh, I bested the police and got off of this parking ticket. I am now a master of the universe.
Right.
No.
I'll
die before I get into that. Like, I'm not even sitting here trying to live in that world. Right. I'm just being honest. But that's me.
Yeah.
Everybody's got to do what's right for them.
Absolutely. Rob, you want to chime in, since we're kind of naturally shifting into the law stuff? Because you definitely dove in and really trying to, I know you've had your background of just trying to make sense of it as well.
Well, yeah, I'd be curious just what Dylan's opinion on some of that stuff is. Most of the things that I've been listening to is a lot of stuff on Crow and Tom Barnett and all those kind of guys. I'm just trying to wrap my head around it too, because yeah, it's a difficult one to kind of see what's coming. All of the, and again, I live in Ontario, so it's like the craziest place to live right now. yeah, man. So it's just like, but what I can get, like, I understand what you're saying, because it's like, it's so much little like, oh, you can do everything perfectly, but if you say this little word wrong, you're right back in our jurisdiction. We got you again. It's just like, and then there's the whole conversation of, well, actually, the system is perfect. And it's just because you just need to know what the game is and stuff. And it's like, well, no, it's not. If you can do everything, and then they trick you.
They change it based on their whims. That's the problem. Is they change it. If you look at this, all goes back to like when you look at that first like was it the Saccoccio Trust, whatever, where it starts. They've had 600 years to perfect this. Right. And what they do is they keep amending everything and changing everything. So like if you hand them their ass, even the people who do this and succeed a lot of the time, they'll admit that the way they succeeded that time might not work down the line because they've already recognized the flaws, and then they change, oh, well, we need to pass this, you know, and it's just like, not only that, the people in the system don't even know their own rules. So even though you're looking at it from a philosophical standard and you're sound and you've got your affidavit and everything on you, cross your T's, dotted your I's, everything, you're in honor, all that stuff. The people you're playing with are like a retarded 6-year-old who just, when he doesn't get his way, kicks the board over. Right. It's like, oh no, I own this, I do this. And it's like, it's whatever they want it to be because they're backed by fucking the violence of the state. And if they want to, they can do whatever they want. Right. Just look at Ben Balderson's story the other day when he's talking about the people coming onto his property and burning his fucking alchemy lab down because they thought or whatever, they destroyed it because they thought he was fucking using it for drugs. They didn't have a warrant. Do you think they need to go through any legal process to do what they want? No. That's what I'm saying. Like, you can sit here and be justified. That doesn't mean they're not going to kill your ass. Do you want to risk your life for the, what's the word I'm looking like? The moral security of like, oh, I'm right. Right. Do you want to be right or do you want to be safe and like out of that? And I'm not saying safe like run from conflict, but for me, I don't have the patience for it, man. Like, let's get this fucking thing going or shut up and get out. Like, I don't care about this paperwork, man. My rights don't come from fucking paperwork. My rights come from God, my creator alone, and there's nobody that's going to say otherwise. And if you think otherwise, come do something about it. Anything you want. Give me an excuse. That's how that's how I am. I don't fucking tolerate this shit. But I do see the value in knowing how this works. Right. So you can, oh, that's a minefield. We're about to walk through a minefield, Rob.
Well, what's
turned around? We got to go to east. We got to go east. North is the minefield, and all the freak show sprites who are like, oh, look at you're in my jurisdiction now. Even statutory law, they're not even passing laws. They're statutes, which are based in penal code. The root word of which is what penalty comes from, which are forfeitures in contractual obligations where somebody didn't uphold their end of the bargain and now they've got to forfeit something and pay a penalty. That's a contract. It's based on consent, technically. And what they're saying is, well, because you're a citizen of this country or whatever, because we own you and you're using our fiat currency and you're using our commercial system, you agree to be bound by these statutes that we pass to no end, and nobody even knows how many of them exist. Because there's so many, not one person can keep up with it. It's madness. You're literally descending into the mind of a maniac to try to beat him at his own maniacal, despotic game. Right. Fuck that.
I mean, what's great, as I say, what's great to what you're saying is with your second book is just that it's like you're not wanting to roll around with the pigs and get into the muck of it all. It's a matter of knowing that it's there, knowing that this is on the basis of it, and you go into great depth in the book. This is what's going on. This is what they're trying to do, or what they are continually doing. Having awareness, right? Having, a mindful, conscious breakdown of just basically the essence of what is going on gives you the upper hand of just that. Going, I can now choose to engage, or I can choose to go east and avoid the minefield. And I think that's the beauty of this, is because as we're all going and waking up, right? You wake up to certain things. The first thing you get angry, you go through like the stages of grief, but the stages of truth, waking up to the truth. It's a matter of now going like, I'm not gonna lie. When I was getting lost up, I'm like, that's it. I'm no longer citizen. I watch the Crow stuff. I'm like, I'm figuring out how to get out of this. Like, you start to get into this, like, I have to just make a decision rather than being like, all right, let me get with this information. Let me sit with this knowledge. And then what do I do? How do I move forward? And as you just said, like, hey, man, you can play in the mind of a maniac and try to play their game. But as you said, that maniac 6 years old and being like, actually the next, and then you're like, what the fuck, dude? Like, you just changed rules 6 times. No, I didn't. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
But this is the the great thing about what you're doing and the work, and I know you've been doing this for a long time, and the books have been out for a while, but people are waking up that's going, all right, I need to know what the fuck's going on. Like, it's too obvious, it's too blatant now. Please just, is there anywhere I can go? It's like, yeah, you can go here. And now you can then make your decision with that. Again, what is an agreement? What is a contract? It's a meeting of the minds. We're actually now can be like, hey, I am making decision because we are actually two minds coming together to come to agreement. So,
well, we're all collectively participating, and so like it is a game of consciousness. So the real challenge we have is it's like we're in like a situation where we're like crabs in a barrel, and every time someone's about to get out, the others pull them back in.
mm-hmm.
And the reality is we can't truly change this until we've changed perception of it, and enough people who actually work. I mean, this can't be exposed by 3 dudes who are fucking artists. It's got to be people in law enforcement. It's got to be people in government who are like, holy shit, I didn't know this is how it worked. Fuck this. Fuck this. Well, no, we're not doing this. We need sheriffs. We need people who are like actually in positions to say, you're getting rounded up and you're getting rounded up, and oh, here's a cross of Nero for you, and here's a cross of Nero for you. And, you know, these people are demonic, and they're fucking making a living keeping us at the fucking bottom of the barrel on behalf of the royalty and the priest class. And all of this whole thing is ecclesiastic by nature. What do you know of Christian history but the ecclesiastical history written by Eusebius the Jew? Right. And it's all like every historian, every bishop, every person in the church that is passionate about history and truth has admitted that Eusebius is one of like the rankest, most deceptive forgers and trashy, so eager to rewrite history, or wherever there's no evidence, fabricate evidence to suit the winds of the church.
Right.
He's disingenuous. So all of our laws are based on ecclesia. This is all canon, right? Canon, Kanan, Kanun, right? And for Arabic, right? Kanun, so Q-A-N-U-N, Kanun. Then you have Canon, C-A-N-O-N. Then you have Canaan, Phoenicia, C-A-N-A-A-N. And then you have QAnon, Canaan.
Dude,
watch out for those Canaanites, bro.
Man, this is what just gets it so jacked up, because you start to see what is getting put into our perception, what is put into our field through media, through the government, you know, mind control, all that stuff. And you start to see with that symbolism is just the words themselves. Like, yeah, there's some good things that came from it for sure, but what are they also doing? They're encoding, this is who's doing it. This is where it's
poison pill. They have to do good stuff in order to get you to take the poison and hex yourself.
Exactly.
If it was all fraud from the beginning, it wouldn't, you know, It wouldn't work. So that's what they do, is they sell you like enough truth to get your trust, and then they turn when the times are right.
Yeah.
But they wait till you're too invested to turn away. And you got people who still can't admit they're wrong, you know, and they're still going with the lies. It's one thing after another, and it's sad. It's especially sad when it's like your countrymen, and like, you know, before, when we were growing up, you know, pre 9/11 is a different country. And pre 9/11, you could disagree with people all the time and still be friends.
Right.
And like slowly the political climate changed after that to now it's like, if you don't support every little thing that I support, you're an enemy of humanity and you have no rights. And, you know, like,
you're a Semite.
Yeah, anti-Semite, you know, and it's like,
Yeah, you're an anti-Semite. But
it's like, what?
Yeah,
Get out of here, man. It's like, you know, like, it's weird because none of that shit, like even when so like me being out in Hollywood, I was hanging out with like the gay mob, who also happen to be, a lot of them are Jewish. And that's like the first thing I'm asking, because I'm just like that guy from New England. Like, why is everybody Jewish and gay over here? Right. And they would, and they would explain it to me. I was like, I thought Judaism was a religion, not a fucking ethnicity. And one of them's like, see, I told you, like, this is exactly correct. And then the other was like, yeah, but that's the way it used to be. But now it's like, because they took on this like idea where you can't be Jewish unless your mom's Jewish. So you need to breed with the same fucking family lines. It's like this weird thing. And when you go far back enough, you see it's all fake, and they're just taking names and like stealing them and assigning them to themselves, and then saying, "Oh, this is a race."
It's crazy, man.
Fucking nuts.
It's wild, man.
And
So sorry,
everybody's a scare. Oh, go ahead.
no, I'm saying we'll probably have to wrap up here shortly on my end.
Yeah, whatever you guys
but
want.
if you want to, I don't know if there's anything you wanted to finish on that thought, or Rob, if there's anything you wanted to try to get in, any questions before we kind of close it up.
Yeah, I just have like 16 more questions for Dylan, if that's cool.
I was gonna say.
No,
Leave it rolling.
I'm just I'm just enjoying this, man. I can talk about these topics for forever, and just going back to some of the stuff we said earlier was, even though some of the I think the journey that kind of a lot of us went on with pursuing, I think the actual pure creativity, which I agree with you, is your divine connection to the creator, because as the creator creates, that's how you honor him, you know, is exactly creating as he creates, which is pure creativity, creating something out of nothing kind of thing. And it's just, it's definitely disheartening when the mode of which you fell in love with that is actually so kind of dark in its underbelly. But for me, at least, the work that you've done and finding out about you from Crow and all that kind of stuff, man, like, at least your books have, the energy that you put into those have definitely reverberated for millennia to come, in my opinion. And they've helped
Thank
me
you.
immensely solidify my mind, being like, I'm not fucking wrong here. Like, I'm looking at this stuff in the right way, or I'm at least open enough now to truly understand and truly find capital T truth. And it's in there, and I just need to kind of unlock that. And you've been an instrumental key in my understanding. So I just can't thank you enough for what you've done, man.
Thank you, man. It was I do feel like sometimes I fell on a grenade for people, because it's like, if I would get, man, if I could literally be in your guys' shoes and just not have to have done the work that I did, and just be able to read my books and get that and move on with my life, I would pretty much give anything to do that. I don't like the fact that I wasted so much of my life learning this stuff, but I did it because I knew that there's a good possibility that if I didn't do it, nobody would ever put it together like I did, because I started learning about it through experience. I wasn't sitting there YouTubing my way to learning this shit, or Googling or whatever. I was around it. That's how I was able to access what was going on, as I experienced it. And if I didn't have that experience, and if I didn't have people who had much more experience than I did guiding me into certain ways and certain places to look, without, because there's, believe it or not, there's a lot of people in some of these cults, if you will, if they're from Mesopotamia, or like a more ancient part of the world, they don't like what they see in America and how the cults are used. They're like it's like the Walmart now. Like, they don't like how, like, they allow anybody to join them, because they're more interested in just having, they're like the church, where they just want your money. Whereas in other parts of the world, they still take some of this shit very seriously. And you need to pass real degrees of initiation. You need to go through real trials. You need to, so it's like, not everybody involved with the cults is bad. And so that's why I've never been about blaming one person for being in any of them. It's nobody's to blame. These are just systems, and we can change them tomorrow if we want. It just requires enough people knowing about it. And then if people are demanding the change, it'll change. Right? But if everybody's going to go along with it and allow it, you're going to get what you put up with. And that's why I'm so big on just like, don't put up with it. If it's something you don't like, gone. And that's what I did. I put up with shit I didn't like, because I wanted to make it. I didn't want to lose any opportunities. So I was like, well, these guys are all famous and they're all fucking working. They can help me work. If I'm just like cool around them and they see that I'm a good guy, they'll then give me opportunities to earn my way. And it just never happened, because they don't look at you like that. If you're a young, good looking boy, they look at you as like a sexual object. And you, as a young man, you don't want to admit that to yourself. You're like, no, I'm more than that,
Right, but it's the truth.
Not to them. You're a fucking piece of meat to them.
Dude, it's done. It's and this is the thing, is a lot of people who haven't been in that world, or haven't been something similar, they don't realize that how common that is, and how that is exactly what it is. I can say it, you find yourself in the same positions, and being young and you said wanting to make it and wanting to do something, you realize there's like a moral dilemma. And as you said in our last conversation, like fortunately my parents that I knew, I'm like, no, we're not going down this route. I will not be doing that. So not that I didn't lose. It wasn't like I had all these big opportunities and I lost them. It was the building blocks. It's like, oh, that interaction, that potential, you know, relationship of getting in, that just got completely wiped. That person didn't want to talk to me anymore because of the interaction that I didn't agree. You know what I mean? Like, and it's just the truth. And what's even interesting is, and I will say the beauty of it is talking about creation and the divine is, at least in my experience, when I was seeing that while I was still in it, I was like, I'm going to make my own shit. I'm not doing this anymore. I don't want to be going through that process and having to be like schmoozing to like try to get people to like me to see what I'm capable of. I'm just going to create my own stuff. Okay, how do I do that? I need to come up with an idea. Great. Let's build this idea. Let's write the story. We need a team. Let's build a team. Cool. We got producers, we got directors. You start, you know what I mean? And before you knew it, like, was it the most, logos driven stories at the time? No, but it was that ability to know I don't need to depend on that system to do what I love to do. I don't need to.
Still took action. And that's what people need to do is whatever it is you're going to do in life, you need to take action. Yep. And sometimes you see it like when your friend is like hitting on a woman, right? And he's like saying the stupidest shit to her, and you're like, dude, you're fucking embarrassing. And then all of a sudden it's like working.
Yeah.
Because he just took action. Right. And so it's not so much, you don't have to be perfect. You can be sloppy, but if you're doing something, you're going to have an impact because you took action, right? And that's the thing is we've got to get out of the conceptual world with all this nonsense and get into the actual world and take action, do something, create something. And I think that's the real reason people are so fucked up is very few of them create anything. They don't know what it's like. They don't know what that feeling is like, whether even like creating a song, all the work you got to do and the thinking about, okay, what words rhyme with what or flow with this and like tell the story that I want to tell without being too obvious. What chords do I arrange? all this stuff. And it's like, when you finally do something, when you finish a painting, whatever it is you do, you build something, you are looking at a product that you created and it's out in the physical world now for others to enjoy. That is like, if you do that well enough, people are going to take notice. I think maybe, that's my experience. If you do something well enough and you keep producing content, you're going to get noticed.
I 100% agree. It's just a matter of then who are those people that are being drawn to it, right? And having the ability like yourself to then sift out who it is that I want in my circles or who do I want in my part of my viewership that I want to engage with essentially to some capacity or another. So on that, I would say I am grateful that you've taken the chance to talk to us, building, some sort of friendship through this process. And that for me,
thank you.
It's not easy, right? I can only imagine you're dealing with the amount of people that are getting attracted to your work for the good or the bad. I
try to only like do things through referrals. Like I saw that you run like I'm attached to Unbearables. So I was like, yeah, I'll go. Right.
And that's the thing,
you like kind of got to know me a little bit and like reached out to me. It wasn't like a lot of people, like if we don't have like mutual friends or something, it's hard for me to like,
of course, dude.
I'm just always scared I'm going to get on someone's platform and they're going to make me like, they're going to set me up to look like a fool or something. And
I get it, dude. And that's the thing I get from listening to your conversations, knowing kind of what you described, how, because I've never been in that situation per se. It's like, I can see how this is not easy. So that's why I've always been in with my show. And I know Rob, you with your show, you've been doing, it's like, look, I just want to throw the invitation out. If you accept it, awesome. I just want to know, I want to learn, I want to pick your brain. Being on that other receiving end, it's hard because it's like, I don't know this person from a hole in the wall. Who are they? What are they? But so it goes to show you referrals, people, what are they putting out? What's their content like? Are they even creating? Because if someone's just like showing up and it's like, hey, I want to pick your brain, and you see that they're not creating anything, you're like, what is this? Like, not to be mean, it's just like, is this something true? Like I've had people be like, you need to talk to my friend. I'm like, I don't know you. And I don't know, we don't have any mutual friends. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, and now that I've got like a vibe for Rob and stuff, like if you want to do this, just you and me or sometime or
Yeah.
whatever, but you know, like we can do it. You know, we can get together and have a conversation. Just for
Yeah.
me, it's just about being with somebody who's sincere. You know, like being around people that are earnest, because you never know who's like a little fucking just like I'm gonna get him. You know, like it's just and then you know like I also worry about like I also don't want me to make you guys look bad because sometimes I speak off the cuff almost all the time. I don't really have a thought process into what I say. I just like it's coming to me, I'm gonna say it. And I very rarely think about what I say. So and I can be very abrasive to all these sensitive, you know, pansies, these delicate flowers all over that our country in North America has become, you know. It's just so I'm always worried that I'm going to say something that's going to offend people's audiences. So now it's just like, well, you guys have a good vibe of how I'm going to come across. Invite me on at your own risk.
Dude, I just
Because I'm not changing me, motherfuckers.
well, I
I'm
just
going
want
to
to
deal
see.
with it.
Here's the thing: if you're coming from a place of actually telling truth, and Rob, you know, can chime in real quick. It doesn't matter, man. I know you're trying to be truthful, and also
Yeah.
again, being that we have similar backgrounds, I know a lot of the shit you're saying. Like I've been there, I get it. Like in certain parts, not fully.
Who hurt you?
Yeah. Where was it? Right here, mama.
Who snuck in your room and tried to touch you down there?
Yeah, I was gonna say, man, it's fucking corrupt, man, and that's the thing is it's dark, and people don't want to know that or admit to themselves, but it is the case. So you know, I'm grateful for that we can have these conversations. Rob, is there anything you want to add before I close this out?
Nothing much, man. Just really grateful to meet Dylan here and be a part of the conversation with you guys. Really appreciate it.
Likewise, man.
Awesome,
Good
guys.
meeting
Thank
you,
you so
Rob.
much, and everyone listening. Real quick, you can check Dylan out on Amazon. I'll put the links in the show notes to his books, his Audible book as well. I'll make sure I get that in there as well. And then, is there anything else you want to add on top of that, or is that
Yeah,
it?
just if you see value in the work, you know, if you've read if you're seeing this and you've read the books and you haven't left reviews, that's probably the best way you can help the work get out there is leave positive reviews, especially on like Amazon or Goodreads. Because I've got a lot, I had a lot of people, I kind of shot myself in the foot by engaging with bad reviews back in the day. So like when you go to like my fiction series, the first book, like what they did is they left a bunch of fake reviews and then they voted all the bad reviews up front. So that's all that is on the landing page.
Right.
And so it like deters people from buying it. But that's my own fault, and I should have never got involved with people who left reviews. But it was the days when I actually had a Goodreads profile.
Right.
So when you see notifications, like people leave a review, but it's like a notice to you. You know what I mean? So like when people say like nasty things, for me, my problem is I treat the online the way because I grew up without the internet. So when people talk to me online, I treat them like they're a person in reality, and they're not. And that's the thing about online behaviors. It's a broke person's habit to engage with comments and stuff. And I mean, unless someone's really supportive of you in the comments or whatever, then that's a different story. But like, it's just I don't really try to engage with people. And so if you're looking at this and you're like, well, how do I contact you? Like, don't contact me unless you're like a hot babe 9 or higher and you've been with less than 3 guys and like you feel like you know you need to have my children. I don't give a shit about hearing from you.
Right.
Or unless you have like a massive audience or something. Other than that, you got to meet me through guys like you. There's got to be some sort of filter process because I don't talk to just anybody, right? If I were to talk for like an institution, I'd be like $10,000 an hour minimum. You want me to go into this and do this work for you? You're gonna pay me. You're not gonna make me look like a fool.
Mm-hmm.
And I do it for you guys because you guys are all in the same circle of people who are getting their lives burned to the ground, at least in the digital world. And it's like every way we go, somebody's putting up a fucking roadblock and trying to make our life more difficult.
Right.
Just because they don't like what we have to bring to the table and what we have to say. And it's like, that's not what this country is about. You're supposed to be able to look at everything and say whatever you want, and people have a right to listen or not listen. But you should never be censored. That's not what we agreed to. And so if somebody wants to touch base with me, they can do it through you guys. If you vouch for them, then I know your reputation's on the line. So it's like, all right, if Rob turned out to be a freak show, then, you know, I'm blaming you, Pat. But Rob seems like a cool guy. So, you know.
Dude.
We'll connect. You know, when you want to do something, Rob, you and me, we'll do something. It's not a big deal. I'm available now. You better take advantage of it, because once I'm done with these books, if my financial situation hasn't changed, I've got to do something else. I don't have time to do this stuff anymore, because I gotta find a way to thrive. You know, I'm 38 and I don't have a life.
Well, I appreciate your time, Rob. You want to just quickly give a plug to what your show and what you're doing?
Yeah, definitely, man. So yeah, you can find me on YouTube, Rob Edward. I run a podcast called Dig Within, and I'll definitely be reaching out to Dylan to try and get him on there for sure, man. And yeah, just grateful.
I'm subscribing right now.
Yeah, grateful to just spend a great Friday night with you guys, man. Really enjoyed it.
Well, thank you guys so much, and everyone watching, thanks for chiming in and enjoying what we threw down. So have a great night, everyone.
Yeah, and thank you for listening and putting up with our bullshit.
Awesome, man. On that note, we'll see you guys again.